they would, you see, they would wait. The night fighters, German night fighters, would wait until the stream lost its close cover, you see, and then they would go after them. And they were smart. But that night, we were flying home, and we were stationed in Ford at the time, which is on the south of England. And on the way home, it was pitch black. It was the blackest night that I can remember. And you didn't fly with any lights, because that would attract the enemy fighters, you see. So what you had to do was fly close formation on the other guy's exhaust flames. And this is a very dull light and very difficult to judge how close or how far away from it you were. In some way, I got separated from the main body of Spitz, and afraid to come back, because I was afraid I would maybe hit another aircraft. So I veered away and got hopelessly lost. I flew by myself back to England. At one point, I noticed that my gyro, which sort of indicated our direction, it was spinning, so I lost that. I couldn't read my compass because of the bad light, and I was totally lost in the middle of the night. I can remember suddenly feeling water in my coop top, which meant, I didn't know what it meant, whether it was rain or what, I don't know, but it was wet. And I thought, my God, I'm almost on the, at sea level. And knowing that these cliffs were somewhere around that you couldn't see. So I did radio the station and asked for a vector home. That is, they're supposed to be able to pick you up and tell you to fly in such and such a direction. Which I eventually did. I managed to read my compass and set my gyro and flew on that, and eventually I did get home. But it was, I think that was probably the most terrifying experience I've ever had. The word from command was that we were to destroy all transport, trains, buses, barges. They used a lot of barges to transport ammunition and that kind of thing. And when you hit a barge and it exploded, it was quite an explosion. And so, we did a lot of that. And anything that moved sort of got shot at. If there was mobile transport, then it was unlikely that it would be civilian. In any case, we had no ways of identifying just who these, cars, trucks, people, who they were. We're traveling at 350, 400 miles an hour, and you just can't tell. We were at 83 Airfield. And 83 Airfield was made up of two wings. One wing was a Typhoon wing, and the other wing was a fighter wing. And that was the connection between the two. We were in the same airfield, and they were Canadians in the other part of airfield 83. You see action, 10, 15 miles over there. You say, what next? So we go over there just to see what's going on. And these darn tiffies, they would be sort of going round and round and round and round like that. And they'd be attacking tanks for the most part. And we would just sort of watch them. Well, one day we're sort of, the weather is bad, and we had to pull into a typhoon base to wait out the storm or whatever. And we went into the briefing tent because every time you landed, you had to be briefed or debriefed. And so we walked in and we looked around, and it's full of these Tiffy pilots. And one guy's got his arm in a sling, another has a bandage around his head, and everywhere we look, there's scars and bruises and everything. These guys are banged up. Then you look at your own people, and we're pretty well spit and polish, not a scratch on any of us. And we just looked, and we were almost ashamed to be in the same room with them. And this is their lot in life. They took an awful beating. One day, we were just finishing the sweep in France, and on the way home, we saw this typhoon, and he was just sort of dragging his ass. He wasn't moving very quickly, and we sort of got in close to him, and there was a hole in his wing right next to the cockpit. I swear it was that big. I don't know how that aircraft stayed in the sky. I got our wings, couldn't talk to him on the radio, and pointed like that, and he said, okay, and we accompanied him. We were afraid he would end up in the channel and be alone, and we could at least pinpoint for the RC rescue where he went down, you see. But no, he made it back to the nearest base, and and our aircraft were so pristine, clean, and that what a difference. Those guys were heroes. And that was the difference between the Typhoon and the Spit. The Spit was an expensive sports car, and the Typhoon was a truck. Johnny West was from Nova Scotia. We called him our blue noser friend, and he nice guy. But anytime you were talking to him, and the idea of what do you do when your airplane gets hit, he just hated the idea of someday having to bail out. And by the way, we weren't even taught how to bail out of an aircraft. Anything we learned about bailing out of an aircraft, we just picked up over a couple of beers or something like that, and that's how we learned what somebody thought was the best way to do it. So anyway, Johnny, he was terrified of the idea. We had been on quite a long sweep, and we were stationed in England at the time. And the sweep took us, I think almost to Paris, as I recall. And halfway across the channel, we knew we were running low on gas. Johnny called up, "Hey, fellas, my engine stopped. I'm out of gas." And so the CO told a couple of us to go down and just pinpoint where he was. And we saw Johnny just sort of stand up in the seat of his aircraft. He pulled the coupe top off. He stood up, and I think he probably pushed the stick forward with his foot, and then he was jerked out of the aircraft. But I think as he was jerked out of the aircraft, he must have pulled the ripcord on his chute, and the end of that chute caught on the tail of the aircraft, which went straight down and in. We circled and gave the RC rescue people a location where he would be, and then we had to take off because we were low on gas. And that's the saga of Johnny West. What he was so afraid of actually happened, and it was tough.